Was Genghis Khan really the biggest killer in history? You see this claim all over the internet, but is it true? Well, let's get one thing straight. Genghis Khan wasn't an explorer. He was a conqueror. And among all the military leaders in history, his campaigns absolutely caused one of the highest death tolls, though the exact numbers are wildly debated. So, was he the most murderous? It really depends on how you measure it. If we're talking about deaths caused directly by wars and conquests, Genghis Khan and his generals had a truly devastating impact. Estimates range from 10 to 40 million people killed during the 12th and 13th centuries. That number is colossal for the time. These deaths came from the wars to unify the Mongol tribes. The invasions of China, Persia, Russia, and Central Asia, and the systematic massacres of cities that dared to resist. But we have to remember, these estimates are very uncertain because precise records from that era just don't exist. Also, he didn't personally kill all these people. These are deaths attributed to his massive imperial project. How does he stack up against others? Well, history is filled with leaders and regimes responsible for massive death tolls. Tamerlane, who came after the Mongols, is estimated to have killed between 8 and 20 million people. The early Chinese emperors of the Qin and Han dynasties caused millions of deaths in their own wars of unification. The European colonization of the Americas led to tens of millions of deaths from war, disease, and exploitation. In the 20th century, World War II saw Hitler, Imperial Japan, and Stalin responsible for tens of millions of casualties combined. And then there's Mao Zedong in China, whose policies led to famine, repression, and revolts, causing millions upon millions of deaths. So, while Genghis Khan is definitely high on the list, it's not accurate to say he was the single greatest killer without adding a lot of context. The myth of Genghis Khan as this ultimate exterminator was also amplified by his enemies, like the Persians, who wrote extremely negative chronicles about him. The demographic impact of the Mongol invasions was real, but the sources often exaggerated the numbers. Still, the scale of destruction in the cities of Central Asia was unlike anything seen before. But there's another side to the story, without trying to romanticize the brutality. The Mongol Empire created a secure Silk Road for decades, established a postal and communication system, allowed relative religious freedom, and economically integrated China, the Middle East, and Europe. It's a classic case of history mixing extreme brutality with administrative progress. So, the direct and honest conclusion is this. Genghis Khan was one of the most destructive military leaders, responsible for an incredibly high number of deaths. But calling him the most depends on your comparison, counting method, and historical context. He's at the top of the list, but he's not alone, and there's no consensus that puts him at number one. Absolutely. Let's do a direct, brutal, and clear comparison of the figures most responsible for mass deaths in history. Remember, all these numbers are just estimates. At number 1, we have the European colonization of the Americas from the 16th to 18th centuries. The estimated death toll is between 50 and 90 million people. The causes: diseases brought by Europeans, slavery, war, famine, and total social collapse. It's the largest population catastrophe ever recorded. Number 2 is Mao Zedong in China from 1949 to 1976. The estimate here is 40 to 70 million deaths. The causes were the Great Leap Forward, induced famine, political purges, and the Cultural Revolution. He is the most lethal modern leader of all time. Coming in at number 3 is Genghis Khan, with an estimate of 10 to 40 million deaths from conquests, massacres, and systematic destruction. He stands as the number 1 most lethal conqueror in history. At number 4, we have Tamerlane, or Timur, in the 14th century, responsible for 8 to 20 million deaths through deliberately cruel military campaigns, famous for leaving behind pyramids of skulls. Number 5 is Joseph Stalin in the USSR from 1924 to 1953. With 15 to 20 million deaths caused by the Gulag purges, the Holodomor famine, and deportations, making his one of the most repressive regimes in history. Number 6 is Adolf Hitler and the Nazi regime, with 17 to 25 million deaths from World War II, the Holocaust, and induced famine in Eastern Europe. Number 7 is Imperial Japan from 1930 to 1945, causing between 6 and 20 million deaths through its invasions of China and Southeast Asia and horrific massacres like the one in Nanking. Number 8 is the British Empire, particularly in India, Africa, and Asia, with an estimated 10 to 35 million deaths. The causes were induced famines in India, which killed tens of millions, along with colonial wars and exploitation. Number 9, the Russian Empire under the Tsars in the 19th and early 20th centuries, with 6 to 10 million deaths from wars, repressions, and famines. And at number 10, the Ottoman Empire from the 15th to 20th centuries, with 5 to 10 million deaths from continuous wars, genocides against Armenians, Assyrians, and Greeks, and repression. So, in the grim competition of history's greatest killers, Genghis Khan ranks among the top 3 to 5, depending on the estimates you use. He's not the absolute number 1. That spot is usually given to the colonization of the Americas or Mao Zedong. However, in proportion to the world's population at the time, few come close to his impact. And no single conqueror expanded an empire so quickly while killing so many. But why were the Mongols so devastating? It wasn't just irrational barbarism. It was the result of a unique combination of military, social, and strategic factors that almost no other empire managed to assemble at the same time. First, their mobility was absurd. The Mongol horse was small, tough, and fast. Each warrior had 3 to 5 horses, swapping them out as they got tired. This allowed them to cover 80 to 120 kilometers a day. Compare that to European armies at 20 to 30 kilometers a day. The Mongols basically broke the laws of medieval logistics, launching surprise attacks and surrounding cities before they could even prepare. Second, their composite bow was a deadly, portable, and precise weapon made of horn, sinew, and wood. It had a range of up to 350 meters, far greater than anything in Europe. This meant their light cavalry was more dangerous than heavy cavalry. They could rain arrows on their enemies and retreat before anyone could get close. Third, Genghis Khan was a strategic genius. He combined military intelligence, pragmatism, calculated cruelty, and absolute discipline. He used spies, informants, fake retreats, and perfectly choreographed ambushes. His favorite tactic was to pretend to retreat, lure the enemy into an open field, and then surround and annihilate them. It worked against the Chinese, Persians, Russians, and even European knights. Fourth, they used psychological terror as a military weapon. The fear they inspired was one of their greatest assets. They would massacre entire cities that resisted, then deliberately release traumatized survivors to spread the word. The effect: cities would surrender without a fight to avoid the same fate. This terror was intentional propaganda. Fifth, they were brilliant at adapting technology. They didn't destroy knowledge, they captured it. They took Chinese engineers for siege weapons, Persians for administration, Arabs for maps, and Europeans for metalworking. They created a military Frankenstein, combining the best of every culture they conquered. Sixth, their entire society was molded for war. Life on the steppes was harsh. Everyone learned to ride and shoot from childhood. Discipline was a matter of survival. The empire simply organized what was already a warrior culture into an unstoppable army. Finally, they had unlimited ambition and absolute discipline. Genghis Khan created a meritocracy. He rewarded talent, punished betrayal with death, and distributed spoils fairly. While other empires were slow and corrupt, the Mongol Empire was mobile, efficient, and brutally disciplined. The Mongols destroyed cities for strategic reasons, to eliminate future resistance, to set an example, and to break the enemy's political and economic networks. It wasn't random violence, it was state policy. So, why were they so devastating? Because they combined unique mobility, superior weapons, brilliant command, psychological terror, and a culture built for war, all under one visionary leader. The result was an army capable of destroying entire civilizations in months. No other people in the ancient or medieval world brought together so many advantages at once. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to follow for more.